German-engineered tyres for Sri Lankan roads. CEAT car radials. The road is yours. CEAT car radials. The road is yours.
Hello and welcome to another episode of Ruck N Roll. We had a wonderful look forward to the first weekend of schools rugby action in the Cup Championship in this knockout segment, well, almost knockout segment of this Cup Championship. And we had the final weekend last week, of course, the first weekend last week, of course, and we're looking back at it with one of our experts, Abdullah Yusuf, who's in the studio as usual, looking back at a weekend that has been completely full of surprises, thrills, spills. I had to leave the country because I couldn't face my Trinity and friends after that result at St. Thomas. So that's why I'm not in the studio. But Abdullah is looking back at a very interesting match between Royal and St. Peter's first cup. Abdullah, you would have had your heart in your mouth for this one for a while, but in the end, Royal coming through and pulling it off.
Yeah, that's right, Shanaka. St. Peter's got off to a good start. I thought they were very good in that first half. They went into halftime leading 14 points to 8, and on the stroke of halftime, Royal lost one of their key ball carriers, Yoshita Situmina, and things were just not looking good for Royal. But just that first 10 to 15 minutes after the break, Royal just picked their game up, and they scored some good tries, 2 tries, which pretty much helped Royal to get a good lead. And once they got their full complement of players back, they just did enough to hold on and get a very nerve-wracking but good win at the end of the day.
Do you think Royal's game management could have improved a little bit to just stay ahead and make sure that they stayed ahead once they got that lead after in the second half?
Yes, and I also feel that St. Peter's felt the pressure a bit in terms of going down when they had an extra man advantage in their ranks. So I just think that they lost a bit of confidence in that space where Royal just seemed to take things into control. I thought couple of the Royal players who came off the bench had a big impact as well, and that just helped shift the momentum towards Royal. And with that, St. Peter's, they just tend to go off the boil a bit, and they never quite made back. They scored right at the end, but it was just not enough.
And do you think St. Peter's are looking better? Do you think they've improved from the first round?
It's a bit hard to say because this is probably the first real game where they were really pushed close. Even that other game against Wesley, they were beaten fairly comprehensively. So it'll be interesting to see how they will perform in the remaining games as well. And I think we'll probably save my judgment until I see them perform in the remaining 3 games.
Okay, so an important win for Royal after that reversal against Trinity, of course, and Trinity take those points with them into the second round. Let's have a look at our next result. Of course, this was billed as a league decider, but given the Thomians' performance, you might have to suggest that that moniker, that label for this game might have been a little premature. But 36 points to 19, and in the end, Abdullah, St. Thomas was probably happy that it wasn't a little bit more.
Yeah, absolutely. But I don't think you can just blame St. Thomas's totally. I thought that first half performance by Trinity was absolutely brilliant. I don't think you'll find a school team playing much more clinical rugby in terms of power, in terms of pace, in terms of just subliminal touches in terms of their 3-quarter play was absolutely brilliant. And you had to feel a bit for St. Thomas's because Trinity just brought their best game for those first 40 minutes, and they just completely blew the Thomians away, and St. Thomas's never quite recovered from that.
No, they didn't. And I think what was a really important factor in that first 40 minutes was the really gale force wind that was present at the big club grounds, Abdullah. And Trinity played with it in the first half. And it was a testament to the smarts, the rugby nous of Sean Altaf, because he knew exactly how to use that wind, put Trinity in exactly the correct positions that he wanted them to be in, put pressure on the Thomian lineout. And as you said, I remember the Isipathana team of 1999, and then Royals teams of 2001, 2, and of course 2009, of course, and Kingswood teams. But this performance, this running rugby performance, complete performance from Trinity was on par with those great teams.
Yeah, absolutely. And also another thing, what you remember, it was just not the three quarters, but they scored two driving maul tries as well, which was very impressive. And you just expect that when you have a set of forwards and three quarters who can pick their games up and cause problems and pose so much of attacking threats in various parts of the field, it's very hard to defend against. And Trinity just showed that in that first 35 minutes what they are capable of, and it's going to be pretty hard to stop them from here on.
Yes, certainly was, because we saw against Royal Trinity scoring off a couple of cross kicks from Altaf's boot, and the wingers were waiting for it out wide. St. Thomas's were preparing for that, but there was not a single cross kick in this game as well, because they had a space to go right through the middle. And as you said, they had the forward tries as well. They scored about 3 or 4 forward tries against St. Joseph's. And you can see that they're working on different aspects of their game in the lead up to these big matches. And coming up against Wesley and St. Peter's, I think we're going to see some interesting stuff from Trinity. And of course, they must be saving it all for the last couple of matches of the season, Abdullah, which doesn't bode well for the other teams that come up.
Yes, and one thing we've seen in the last couple of games, they've got so many attacking threats across the field, isn't it? You just think that their three quarters will do the damage and the forwards take over. And one good thing about Trinity is whenever they went into the Thomian 22, they made it count. They were not wasteful, they took every single opportunity. And once they built up that lead, it was just going to be very hard for the Thomians to come back. And we already know how strong the Trinity defense is. And in that second half, they showed their defensive capabilities. So pretty much all-round side, which is going to take a bit of stopping for any team that comes up against them.
Yes, certainly no shame for St. Thomas in losing to this Trinity side. But I think the manner of the defeat and the fact that the strategic mistakes that were made by the Estonian side will be something that they will have to lick their wounds over. But again, they've lost only the one game so far, and anybody could lose. We talked about this last week, Abdullah, with Laksisi and Sudarshana as well, to say that it's unlikely that there will be an unbeaten champion. But if Trinity plays like this, they probably will be. But they're cool boys. Anything could come off, or the wheels could come off at any point, and they could get complacent. Who knows? So let's look at our other results from the Cup Championship. Results that we kind of anticipated last week. Wesley were the favored team going into this, but in the last gasp, Isipathana coming through, a lovely try by Shakib Zumri, well executed under pressure off the back of that line out, and sending Isipathana to the win, but of course not without some controversy of that.
Yes, well, we were expecting a bit of drama in one of the matches, and we definitely got it in this one, isn't it? But it was a game full of thrills and spills because the lead fluctuated between both teams, and it was just a brilliant spectacle. And of course, there were certain instances where crucial decisions which could have gone either way, which could have changed the result. But at the end of the day, it was a brilliant match. Match worthy of that Super 6 stage, and Isipathana once again just pipping it at the end.
Yes, and they have a knack for doing that, don't they? They did it against Trinity in the knockout final. They did it against Wesley in the knockout semi-final, and now they've done it again against Wesley, who were the much fancied team going into this game and going into this second round as well. But do they have a lot to fix, Abdullah? Do Wesley have to go home and rethink anything, or do they just have to chalk this one off as a bad day at the office and just come back and do more of the same?
Not much. I think they did play really well, but again, when you come up against teams that are of equal strength, sometimes it's just the bounce of the ball on the day as well, isn't it? So they have been playing consistently well. I don't think they need to change much. They'll probably be disappointed, but the interesting to see is how they will bounce back from this, because probably they're a little bit hurt in the fact that everyone was expecting them to go all the way and try and get that league title, but they're still definitely not out of it. The only thing is they'll need a few other results to go their way, but they have got to do is just ensure that they keep on getting their best performances in game week in, week out, and hope that the rest takes care of itself.
Yes, they weren't put under a lot of pressure against St. Peter's, which was a tough game in their group. And this was the first one they really came under pressure against. And against Isipathana also, who were the team that beat them in the last occasion that they lost. That's something that would have been playing on their mind. And it was just two very key errors. The ball carrier going to his knees on that maul, and of course the kickoff error that they just couldn't get that try to take them over the edge. But Wesley, I think, are still looking good, and with their match against Trinity is going to be something that we're all going to be licking our lips for. So that was what happened over the last weekend in the Cup Championship, guys. Moving on to the Plate Championship, we had DS Serenayaka taking on Zahira. 76 points scored in that game, and it was a thriller minute stuff. Abdullah, both defensive coaches must be tearing their hair out.
Yes, definitely. And the Maradana ground just seems to bring these high scoring encounters in, isn't it? So it was another brilliant game. Both teams absolutely going at it, and eventually you just feel that Zahira's forward, rather DS Senanayaka's forward power just made the difference. I think they had the biggest set of forwards, and in crucial moments as they got into the correct positions in the field, they managed to bring those big players into play. And Zahir just did not have the defensive ability to hold those big players, and I think that's what eventually made the difference in this game.
Yes, there's a lot of forward power in that DS Serenayaka pack, and they used it to good effect in the first round as well. And that's where Zahira proved to be a little wanting as well in the set pieces. So let's look at our other results in the Plate Championship.
Shanika, just before we move on to the next game, also a small word. I think it was a wonderful gesture by Zahira as well as the wider rugby community in terms of raising funds for one of the DS Senanayaka junior players for treatment. I believe it was for leukemia. So they had raised 1 million rupees from the gate collection and other donations at the match. So kudos to Zahira, their committee, as well as everyone who participated in that match for putting up that wonderful gesture.
Absolutely, they raised 1 million rupees, and that's what this game of rugby is really all about brotherhood and family. Speaking of course, the other results that we have going into the Plate Championship, we had Sri Sumangala taking on Ananda, and Sri Sumangala, there looks like their golden run has ended, but Ananda again with that big set of forwards, just too much to handle.
Yes, I think that pretty much proved to be the deciding factor. Anand, I thought, controlled possession extremely well in that game, and they did very well to bring their bigger players into play as much as possible. And Sri Sumangal, as much as they tried, I think after a while they just couldn't withhold that power anymore, and Anand pretty much ended up with a comfortable win.
Yes, and looks like they're setting up a nice clash with DS Serenayaka later on in the season. Of course, two big sets of forwards coming together, but we'll talk about that when the time comes. Let's look at the other results. And St. Joseph's taking on Kingswood in what I thought would be a really interesting match, and I didn't expect St. Joseph's to come out as well as they did in this game, Abdullah. I have to say, Kingswood, I thought, were the team that had been playing the better rugby, were peaking at the right time, had Rushid Samothia restored to their lineup as well. But the Josephians did their job, didn't they?
Yeah, that's right, and it was a good win because I believe they went up to Kandy and got this result as well. So it's never an easy thing to do, but I just feel that St. Joseph's, they just seem to have clicked in this second stage as the season has progressed, because they look pretty ordinary at the start of the season. But as they have entered the last couple of games, they've looked really good. I think they've identified what their exact strengths are, and they are playing to that. So it's a big win for them, because they would have definitely gone into this game as underdogs. But the fact that they managed to go up to Kandy and get this result will definitely give them a lot of confidence moving forward.
Certainly is. There's a bit of a cloud over Damith Weerasinghe also at the start of the season. Hopefully those have all been sorted out, and they are mentally far more focused as a team going into this second round. So that will be a big win for the Joes fans, of course. Let's look at our other results now. St. Anthony's taking on Dharmaraja in the pole competition, and St. Anthony's winning that one fairly comfortably in the end, Abdullah. You have to say that they were due for that win.
Yeah, that's right. And it's a big win as well. I believe this is the bowl segment that we have now moved on to. So it's a big win for St. Anthony's in terms of avoiding that relegation area. But it looks like Dharmaraja's fate seems to be sealed, isn't it? They've really struggled throughout this season, yet to record a win. and things just don't seem to be getting any easier for them now. So overall, good win for St. Anthony's. They could be pushing for honours in that bowl category in terms of going all the way. But from Dharmaraja's point of view, I think things are looking pretty ominous for them.
Yes, it looks like relegation is what is in the immediate future, but can never say what could happen in the next couple of days. Let's look at another result that we have. Science taking on Vidyartha, and Science College, again, a long overdue but necessary win for Science against the Vidyartha team that had started off really well with the draw against St. Joseph's, but have just, spiraled down that hill.
Yeah, that's right. And Vidyarth also need to be really careful because they are really hang on in that relegation area. So unless they get another win or two pretty soon, they could find themselves in a little bit of trouble. But from Science point of view, big win for them. I think last week we were talking on how they could be one of the favorites to go all the way in this bowl segment. And with that performance, I think they have put themselves in a really good position with the remaining games coming up.
Yes, they will be setting up a clash between themselves and Anthony's probably to decide that bowl competition. So a very good win for Science College. They're traveling and making sure that they got the necessary win when they needed it. Thurston taking on Mahanama, 19-all draw in this one, and Mahanama will be a little bit disappointed. Started off the season quite well, Abdullah, but Thurston, on the other hand, have started off the season fairly slowly, but now look like they're peaking and getting better and better with every game.
Yes, and this is another good result for Thurston, considering where they were at the start of the season. Mahanama, yes, as you said, will be a bit disappointed because on paper you'd feel that they had the stronger team, but it's overall it's a good result, and also it'll just make that bowl segment much more interesting, this draw, isn't it? So both teams will remain in contention. They'll probably be a little bit disappointed that they dropped those points, but again, it's better than a loss, isn't it?
Yes, it's certainly better than a loss, but we'll see how this affects the rest of the teams, of course, because this will take the threat of both Thurston and Mahanama away slightly from the other results. So that's all we've got for you in terms of results on this expert analysis. Looking forward, of course, to the upcoming matches.
CEAT Car Radials. The road is yours.
Hello, you're on Rock and Roll, and we are in control here, brought to you by CEAT, Europe's #1 tire manufacturer, now on Sri Lankan roads. So make sure you get yourself a pair of CEAT tires before you go to the next rugby match, because you might be able to avoid situations like the one we're going to talk about right now. Abdullah, looking back at the Wesley versus Isipathana game, that was the one where Wesley looked like they were in control. Then Isipathana taking control away, and then uh, Isipathana trying to make sure that Wesley don't come back, Wesley trying to make sure that they inject themselves with pace into the game. And that's where the control kind of went off a little. So the whole point is, like CSI, you've got to be in control, but while you're at pace, isn't it? And Wesley just didn't manage to do that. We'll talk about why in a moment.
Yeah, that's right, Chanak. And also another individual which we are forgetting is the person who has to be in control, and that's the referee, isn't it? So it also comes down to his interpretation and how he sees it. And I guess that's what eventually tilted the balance in terms of them coming back and taking the re-kick again, because the referee felt that there is a bit of a doubt of it. His communication seems to have said that it was not a drop kick, but replays showed that a drop kick had been taken, but the Isipathana players hadn't retreated. So eventually, the person who is in control of a game is the referee, and he had to make a call, and he made it, which went in favor of Isipathana and not in Wesley.
Yes, and that's where that control aspect really comes into play, doesn't it? Because a lot of people are talking about the law and whether quick kick can be taken. Yes, a quick kick can be taken if it's behind the 50-meter line, as we'll show you on the clip here. The kick is taken from the correct place, it is a drop kick, which is what the referee got wrong. And I don't think there's any excuse for that having been a wrong call there. The referee needed to have made sure that he saw that ball being kicked off the ground. And there's no rule that says that a drop kick needs to go up in the air. It can certainly go along the ground. There's no issue with that. I thought it was brilliantly spotted by Abdul Hadi, and it was a beautifully weighted kick as well that set right up into the hands of Dasanayake, who might have been able to go over the line if he wasn't called back. So this is where control becomes so important, because you've got to be in control. You've got to make sure that you are in the right place at the right time to allow for the speed that teams want to play at. And I think the law discussion that law 12.5 be applied, and that all the players of the following team need to be behind the 10-meter line is a little ridiculous. And it's not the best interpretation of that law at all.
Absolutely. And also, sorry.
Sorry,
And
guys.
as well, also the other aspect is also the awareness of the laws, isn't it? Now, it seemed that Wesley knew exactly what they were doing, but Isipathana probably didn't realize what was happening. And I guess slightly fortunate for them, the referee also was probably not in the correct position to make that call. So he probably took the safety first option and called back play, unfortunately, which didn't go in Wesley's favor.
It certainly didn't. Was that a title deciding call? We'll have to wait a couple more weeks and find out. See ya. You're in control.
Hearts racing fast, we feel alive. For miles and miles, let your spirit fly. There's no turning back, the road is yours.
German-engineered tyres for Sri Lankan roads. CEAT Car Radials. The road is yours.
Welcome back to CEAT Ruck N Roll. On our guest spotlight, we just don't only focus on what happens on the field. We bring you an array of interviews from people who contribute to make our game, schools rugby, much better viewing and much better experience for everyone. So today I've got a very good friend of mine from the Papare, Damith Weerasinghe, to tell us a bit about what happens behind the scenes from what you see on your screens every weekend. Welcome to the show, Damith.
Thank you, Abdullah. Thank you for having me.
So, Damith, we'd like to know exactly what happens in the lead up to a very hectic, busy weekend of rugby. How does the planning go? What happens behind the scenes? If you could just enlighten us a bit on that.
Yeah, I think first of all, from the Papare side, obviously it's very we are honored and proud to be showing schools rugby, because in my personal opinion, this is, after national cricket, the most watched sporting event in the country. So the number of schools being played, for instance, there's 18 schools being played, and as you know, on a weekend there's about 9 matches, and on certain days there's more than 6 to 7 games on one particular day. So behind the scenes, I think the Papare, what we do, sometimes we cannot even say it by words, because the amount of hard work put in by the guys who have been doing it for the last I think more than a decade. We've been showing it, and now we've slowly but surely have upped our game. And I think planning wise, yes, we've started planning for the Dialogue Schools Rugby League about 3 months before the start of the knockouts. And then obviously the knockouts happened. Now the league is ongoing. But if I could say that on a weekly basis, obviously every week there's games from Friday, Saturday, Sunday, and then again we start planning on Monday. But the guys who are within the system, within the core team, we plan it together, and then we bring in the freelance teams, the vendors and everyone. But the main number would be for a, let's say on a Saturday, the main matches being played on Saturday. We use more than about 100 people to to show the pictures to the entire world.
Right, that's for a total weekend of games, is it?
Yes, let's say now we've stick to about 6 to 7 games for a particular day. Now that we've brought in the on-field review facility to the referees, part of like initially what we were planning was just to bring in a multi-camera match, a couple of multi-camera matches per day. But then obviously the request came from the Sri Lanka Schools Rugby Football Association and the Referees Society to help build the game and bring in that on-field review system, which I think, in my opinion, has worked well. And then because of that, we've had to bring in more number of cameras, more number of people, more number of angles, and more number of replay operators, if you could say. So likewise, on a Saturday, let's say on a Saturday, 6 to 7 games, we use about more than 100 people are working to bring the live pictures.
Oh, absolutely brilliant. And even I can vouch for the fact, because I'm also there most weekends and I can see the hard work that you all put in. Just want to know, how is it on the other side, managing the various stakeholders? That is also never an easy task, isn't it? You have the schools associations, you have the sponsors, you have the referees association. So how does all that, how do you balance that out? Because that's another very difficult part, to balance each one's interests, isn't it?
Yes, it's never easy. I mean, I'm a big rugby fan myself. I come from a school which is a part of these 18 schools also, and I would like to have more cameras for my school game, but I cannot do that. I have to be very neutral in terms of when we decide on the number of cameras, because for all your games, for all the schools, their game is priority. They will think, yeah, this is our game, we will go and watch. That's why they want to have most of the games on Saturdays, which we agree, because most of the rugby fans would love to go on a Saturday and watch the games. And also what we have brought in a couple of years ago, where the overseas fans can pay and watch, which is the part of it goes to the schools also. Okay. And then in terms of upping the quality of coverage, like we have to use the ILL bandwidth system, where there's no disruptions within the internet system, where we send it straight to the main control room at Malabe Dialogue, and then only we insert the TVCs, the advertisements, and then only the feed gets up. So it's a massive process, but to be honest, it's the dynamics where most of the people who are working within the Papare, who they all love sports. Most of them haven't played sport, but they still love the sport. But I think that passion only drives most of the guys who are working.
Absolutely, and I can vouch for that, because I see that week in, week out as well. Also, what are the technical challenges, Damith, that you come across? Because we do see that a lot of games, as you mentioned, are played on one day. Sometimes it's 6-7 games. So that's just an absolutely massive challenge, isn't it? So how do you manage the technical side of things, if you can just elaborate a bit on that?
For example, Abdullah, where for one particular game, let's say we use 2 PCs. We obviously take 2 PCs, we check them the previous day, or at the morning of the game also they check the PC, they check whether the graphics are going on, they check whether the feed is okay, they check whether the audio is working, everything is working until about 3:45, 3:50, or maybe until about 4:15. Suddenly maybe some update comes up and then it suddenly doesn't work. Obviously the fans who are watching, they don't want any disruptions to that 70-minute period. Let's say 1.5 hours of rugby, they don't want any disruptions. But let's say we take in 2 pieces, one PC just doesn't work. It can happen to anyone. And then obviously we don't take any extra PCs to one particular game, because we have to spread all those PCs across the 5 or 6 games. Then what we have done is we've had these problems where maybe the first half we don't play any score graphics or anything, or maybe no commercials will be played. but still we want to somehow show the game. So those are the little challenges which will come. And then obviously when it's a heavily raining day, then the cameraman, we are all human. We all can make mistakes. The cameraman, we've had instances where Sudarshan, our good friend, he's been electrocuted also at a venue.
In Ratmalana,
Yes, in Ratmalana. So that was because sometimes it can rain, play can continue, but for the cameraman, it's not easy for him or her to operate the camera. So those are the little challenges what we face at the venue. But still, I mean, I could say it's never easy. Obviously, we would love to have maybe 2 games per day or maybe 3 games per day, but I'm quite certain it will never happen, at least for the next couple of years even. But what we want to do is somehow show the pictures in various platforms. We have the Dialogue television, we have Dialogue View app, then on the papare.com also. So what we want to do is somehow up the scale and somehow bring that good quality output to the fans.
Yes, the another dimension that has been brought into the game, especially this season, is, as we mentioned, the VAR. What kind of additional technology, what kind of other coordination, what other technical support have you all needed to get to make that process work?
Obviously, when we started off in the first round, we only used it's like only 3 cameras for the, we call it the on-field review system for the referees. And then for the second round, we brought in another 2 cameras from the side, so that whenever you score a try, you get a better angle for the referee. And then the additional communication system to the referee, because there's another additional communication where referee speaks to a producer or director, whoever it is, and then request that particular incident. The challenges what we face is sometimes the communication, there could be gaps, because not all can understand what referee wants. The people who are working behind the scenes, as I said earlier, not all have played rugby, not all can understand rugby on a very technical aspect, but still they somehow manage. We have one particular director at all those venues, and then through that director gives the cue to the we call it the replay operator. We have to bring in another extra replay operator because of the on-field review system, so that we give more angles to the referee. And I think you would also agree that has worked well. I think the referees are also very happy that they get another opportunity to use technology. I think going forward, we would want to increase more number of matches where we use the on-field review facility, and hopefully we can improve going forward.
Absolutely. Another area which I think where the Papare has done really well is it's not just broadcasting local matches, isn't it? Over the last 2 years, and even before that, when Sri Lanka used to host the Asian 7 series, you all used to work very closely with Asian Rugby and provide the feed for them, for not only Sri Lanka but for the entire Asian region to watch rugby. How is that experience working with stakeholders from other countries? I'm sure that would have been absolutely brilliant.
Yeah, indeed. And I think very recently also we worked with Asia Rugby for the Asia Rugby Men's Championship. For the first time in my experience, we've had 6 test matches this year. 6 rugby 15-side games, if I could say in that way. But in rugby terms, it's test matches. So we have had 6 test matches this year, and out of that, we've done 5 games, including the New Zealand 2 under 85 kg games also. And there we had to send the feed to Sky Sports also. And then on the Asian Games, we've had to send the feed to the Asia Rugby. For that, we have to make sure that whenever whoever is watching on Sky Sports or Asia Rugby, they don't get the feel that they are watching a Papare production. We have to make sure that it's a very neutral production. That's usually whenever a host team, let's say now in this instance the host was Sri Lanka Rugby, so we were working for Sri Lanka Rugby and giving our support and spreading the game around Asia and on New Zealand also. I think that was a very good experience for us working with New Zealand Sky Sports. So I think that was the main challenge, showing 6 games this year. And then, as you said previously, we worked with the Asian 7 series, and hopefully in the coming months there's another 7 series happening here. Then a part of rugby, yes, we've had all the other sports, football, cricket, basketball, tennis, all the sports we've done productions. And now with the Papare going into more into DTH, where you call the satellite TV, we have now 3 channels. So through that we are somehow trying to somehow give the fans what they want. They want sports to be shown live on TV, and that's what we are looking forward to do.
Absolutely. And also just like to know, how has the involvement of social media played in the part of spreading the sport? You all do the production part of it, but what role, what impact has social media platforms helped in further broad basing the sport, whatever you all broadcast to the viewers out there?
I think why Papare stands out from the others or the rest of the broadcasters could be where if we cover a certain event, let's say for instance the Heyman Trophy, water polo, we just don't go and show the game on that particular day. We do the previews beforehand. We do interview the captains, the coaches, on whoever, and we build up to that particular event, and that we do through videography, doing little clips and all. Then we do trailering part, where we use trailers to put it on dialogue television. Wherever we could, we slot in those trailers. And then obviously at that particular day, it's not just about showing the event live, we capture photos also. So that's what we bring in. We just don't come in and show the games. We bring in that social media aspect of the full coverage.
And the engagement also, I think, now plays a big part, isn't it?
Yes.
So so that's basically it about the Papare. I think the role that they play in enhancing the viewing experience and also broad-basing the sport as a whole, not just rugby, is absolutely brilliant. And I've had the privilege of working with this crew, so I know exactly the effort and the passion they show to bring that to all our viewers. So thanks a lot, Damith, for coming here today. And we hope to have you back again sometime in the future for further discussion. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Abdul. Thank you very much.
Some things are meant to be felt, not just seen good. At Singha, every curve, every detail is an invitation to experience craftsmanship that transcends time. Crafted with absolute love from materials chosen for their grace and designed to complement the art of living well. Your home is a reflection of your story. Singha is there in the quiet moments and the lasting memories. Built to endure. As time passes, they even feel more closer to you. Quiet luxury, lasting craftsmanship for a stylish lifestyle. Singha Furniture.
Another episode of Recovery Room. You're on Ruck and Roll, of course, and we have our usual guest with us, Shafin Majid, who is joining us in the studio to talk about an interesting topic that raised its, well, I didn't mean to say it like that, but raised its head over the weekend. And I'm talking about head injuries. Majid, welcome back to the show.
It's great to be back.
Majid, we are talking about head injuries, and can you just explain the protocol? I know a lot of people in Sri Lanka watch the international rugby and they talk about HIAs, which is head injury assessment. And there's trained professionals who carry out head injury assessments on players while the match is going on, and they decide whether they can come back to the game or not. But that's not exactly the situation in schoolboy rugby, is it? Can you please explain to us how it's different?
Okay, so in schoolboy rugby, you generally don't follow the same rules and regulations as you would do in international rugby. So what we do follow in school rugby is a protocol that we categorize as a recognize and remove protocol. So what that means is that the player, if you suspect that the player is having a concussion or shows serious signs of maybe having a concussion, irrelevant if he is concussed or not. So that is the most important point with recognized and remove. If the player is suspected to have had a concussion, they are supposed to be taken out. Internationally, under 20, all players have to be dealt with the same strict rules and regulations of if you are suspecting of being concussed by the referee, by the doctor, or by your team medic, that player will be taken off from the field of play. And that is up to the matchday doctor or even the referee to make that decision.
And what are the factors that will be considered in making that decision, Majid? Because a lot of players would, even if they're concussed, I know I've stayed on the field after being concussed, but a lot of players I've spoken to back in the day, maybe even up to as recently as maybe 3, 4, 5 years ago, a lot of them played on even after they've been concussed. So, what are you looking for on the field?
So, concussion would be categorized as showing a few signs and symptoms that may be indicative of a brain related injury. So, that is what we are trying to rule out. The concussion per se is not a strict diagnosis, but it's just a form that we use that's saying that, okay, you probably have had a damage or a sudden traumatic head injury, which might cause long-term issues with your general health and well-being. So on field, what we are trying to prevent is that long-term repetitive trauma, or rather repetitive trauma, which causes long-term damage. So on field, as a doctor, their duty is to assess a player that they suspect that is concussed. And as the physio, our job is to first recognize if a player has sustained a head injury and if he needs a recommendation or needs to be assessed by the doctor to rule a head injury as a concussion or not concussed. Right? So any tackle or any impact to the head has to be strictly monitored by the team medic first, and then the team medic will ask the doctor to come and have a look at the player during the situation if the game hasn't stopped. But the referee's duty as well is to maintain player safety, especially when it comes to concussions. So a player who is suspected to have had a head injury in front of the referee, and the referee noticed, okay, this player might have been concussed, then maybe having a head injury, irrelevant of concussion or not, then it is reported, or the referee will ask the doctor to come in and assess the player. And then from that point on, the doctor will assess the player going through a few questions that might be related to if the player is being concussed or not. So there's a few things that we run through, like we call it a Maddox questionnaire on match day, where the doctor will be aware of the situation, and we will ask the players certain questions to see if they are in a proper orientation or they are properly alert to play the match.
Uh, that recognize and remove situation and noticing whether a player has been concussed and recognizing whether a concussion does exist gets a little difficult though, Majid, when sometimes players, especially with the head injury situation and leading to yellow cards and red cards, we've noticed even this season some players may exaggerate the impact that they took to the head. Now that looks bad on television and people get very upset. It looks bad when the referee looks at it as well. And then when the medic comes in, there's absolutely no problem. So, what is the messaging we can give to players? Because we don't want it to become a situation like in football where you exaggerate an injury to try and get an opponent sent off. We don't want rugby to spiral into that kind of gamesmanship. So, what is the message that you would give to kids who may have taken a bit of head contact and when they realize it, what is the message you give to them, especially with regard to their safety, but also with regard to the ethics of the game?
So yeah, that's a very good point, Shanaka, because as you may know, even in the World Cup last year, we had a lot of injuries or a lot of incidences where players were sent off through a red card of having a suspected head injury or a dangerous tackle to the head, and players of international caliber as well was trying to milk it out of the referee, or rather you would say bending the rules in a certain way that will favor their team. Right, so in a situation like a schoolboy rugby game as well, we see a lot of players just exaggerating, like making it look like it was a lot more than it was actually on the field. In the sense that players need to be aware that if you exaggerate symptoms, especially to the head, you're going to be risking a blue card. And I think referees also are noticing that players are doing this exaggeration as well. But sometimes the referees can't really pinpoint, okay, this guy who has fallen or the player who has fallen has actually had an injury, or if he's just making a bit of a dramatic situation out of it. But the players also, the main thing is that, okay, as a player, if you fall with you holding your head or holding your neck especially, those areas will be looked quite strictly. So we as team officials as well, we need to tell the players, okay, if you are having actually a dangerous tackle on you, and if you're not really hurt, don't try to milk it, especially holding your head, because you as a player might be put under a disadvantage if the referee decides to give a blue card. So that is a very good point that you bring up, because players need to know, okay, if you milk it, you're going to risk, yes, the other player might get a yellow card and he's out for 10 minutes, and you might get a blue card and you'll be out for the 21 days.
Yeah, so that's a big discrepancy in how long players will be out for, whether it's just 10 minutes or 3 weeks. It's maybe the rest of your season that you're thinking about. Majid, what's the best way to come back from a head injury like this?
So with a head injury, again, World Rugby has guidelines, and there are medical guidelines as well, which World Rugby has used to get back into play. So we call it a gradual return to play protocol. So that would first include players getting back into normal light activities. So first day, say first 72 hours, the players are recommended to rest completely. So meaning don't even go to practice sessions, stay at home, keep your eyes shut, give your brain a rest. Because what happens with a concussion is your brain is put under acute trauma, and there might be the brain shaking inside your head, which cause all of the disorientation, things like that. So the first 72 hours are the most crucial. If they get back to playing, they're going to have a higher risk of getting concussed again. So 72 hours of complete rest, reduce the light, so no mobile phones, no TVs, no music in your ears. So just giving your head or the brain as much rest as possible. Once that is given, the player might feel a lot better in terms of, like, they don't have headaches, they don't have dizziness, they don't have a weak body. That's when you would gradually start introducing light activities like jogging, light weight training, and if those activities causes pain or discomfort, then you will immediately stop it and try it the next day. And until you pass those guidelines, and I think most teams should have a proper guideline to send those players onto the field. So making sure that those players are safe before they enter training, not a match, but training, is very important. So if a player is having headaches, dizziness, making sure he's not having a weak body before he goes to train, and under fatigue, if he feels like his body is getting weak than normal, then that player has to be taken out immediately. And on the field as well, if you're suspecting, as a medic, if you're suspecting a player has had a concussion and you don't take him out or don't give mindful advice to the player, that repeated trauma is definitely going to give you a concussion in the next 5 or 10 minutes.
Okay, Majid, thanks a lot for that. That's been very helpful for the players as well, and parents and coaches to realize exactly what they need to look for in these situations, and also people watching games to realize that what you see might not always be what you get on the field, and maybe the players are getting a little bit too smart sometimes in trying to milk cards. Thanks very much for that very informative session once again, Majid, for another session of Recovery Room on Rock and Roll with Shafin Majid.
Hearts racing fast, we feel alive for miles and miles. Let your spirit fly. There's no turning back. The road is yours.
German-engineered tires for Sri Lankan roads. CEAT Car Radials. The road is yours.
Some things are meant to be felt, not just seen good. At Singha, every curve, every detail is an invitation to experience craftsmanship that transcends time. Crafted with absolute love from materials chosen for their grace and designed to complement the art of living well. Your home is a reflection of your story. Singha is there in the quiet moments and the lasting memories. Built to endure. As time passes, they even feel more closer to you. Quiet luxury, lasting craftsmanship for a stylish lifestyle. Singha Furniture.
Looking ahead to next week's matches, of course, we have some outstanding games up for decision, especially given what happened the last week. And remember that you have a chance to predict and win on Rock and Roll as well. Most of you did predict, and last week there were two upsets in terms of your predictions. Of course, none of you expected Isipathana to win that game against Wesley, and kudos to all of you who predicted right. And most of you expected St. Thomas's to beat Trinity in Mount Lavinia as well, and most of you got that wrong. So just a few players left in the matchup for the 100,000 rupee prize at the end of the season, and of course the 50% off to CEAT tires for your car as well. Looking up at the cup segment, we have Trinity taking on Isipathana, resurfacing of that knockout clash, Abdullah. And given the way Isipathana played against Wesley, do you think Trinity might have a small mental block against them, or do you think with that performance against St. Thomas's, everything has been sorted?
Yes, I think they're going into that game with a lot of confidence, especially given that first half display in Mount Lavinia. And the fact that they're playing in Pallakale as well, they'll definitely go in as favorites. But if there is one team that can cause an upset up there, it's definitely Isipathana. And we just need to keep in mind as well, they got the better of the Trinitians in that knockout final. So psychologically, they'll know that they can beat this opposition. So it'll be an interesting game, but if I had to predict, I'd probably go with Trinity for this one.
Yes, well, the form would point to Trinity, but of course, we had two common opponents. Trinity played their best game against St. Thomas's. Isipathana probably their worst game against St. Thomas's in the last 2 weeks. So obviously, whoever turns up on the day is how that match is going to be decided, and who has the tactical understanding to take each other apart. That's what's going to be really interesting. It'll be Shan Altaf versus Avish Kahira, and both those players, very, very smart players in key positions, and we'll have a look out as to what they are going to be doing. St. Thomas's, the wounded St. Thomas's taking on St. Peter's for the Archibald Pereira Trophy. St. Peter's has had the rub of the green in this trophy in the recent past, of course, but the Thomians once again at home will be expected to win this one comfortably, Abdullah. But once again, you have a feeling that can St. Thomas's recover from the disappointment of last week, and do St. Peter's have a big game in them?
Yes, so it'll be interesting to see, because both these teams will be coming into this game after losses, and they'll definitely want to try and put that right in this match. But again, St. Thomas's, probably just going by the way they have performed this season, I think overall they have the better outfit in comparison to the Peterites, and playing at home, that'll be another advantage. If the Thomians can just dominate up front, if they can dominate that Peterite pack where I think the Thomians have an edge over, then I predict the Thomians could go all the way.
Well, they certainly have to do some line-out work in training this week to do that up front. If they can, then perhaps they will have a chance. But you have to say that St. Peter's might be looking good for a little bit of an upset, but you have to say Abdella's right. St. Thomas's will be the favourites going into that one, but you can never write the speed right team off. Wesley taking on Royal, that's going to be a cracker, isn't it, Abdullah? Both those teams also. Wesley coming in off a loss, Royal with a narrow, well, not a narrow win, but not a comfortable win, both with a lot of points to prove. And Wesley know this is their best chance to win the title. Royal probably know that they have an outside chance only of winning the title. So there'll be a lot of different mindsets going into this game.
Yes, well, the way it stands now in the league, Shanaka, it's basically Royal 1 win and Wesley 1 win. So both teams in that aspect are on even keel. But just going by the performances of both teams this season, you'd have to say that Wesley are coming into this game as favourites. They will definitely be hurt by that loss to Isipathana last week, and they'll definitely want to put in a good performance. Royal, on the other hand, would have gained a bit of confidence after that win against St. Peter's. So it's going to be a really close game. But again, probably the heart says Royal, but mind says that Wesley will probably nick it.
Well, Wesley will probably be the favourites going in, given the form over the course of this season and given how complete their performances have been, except for that blip last week. But Royal will have a mountain to climb, but they do possess the personnel to actually do that. And it will be interesting to see if their kicking game brings Wesley undone. So that's what we've got to look forward to in the upcoming weekend.